Yo, what's up everybody? It's your boy Trevor, back at it again with the real talk. Today we're diving deep into the heavyweight bout of the century, the US versus China economic showdown. It's a clash of titans, a battle for global dominance that's got everyone on edge. Buckle up, because things are about to get real interesting. Now this ain't your mama's Cold War, folks. This time, it's all about trade, technology, and who's got the biggest economic muscles. We're talking tariffs, sanctions, and enough economic jargon to make your head spin. But don't worry, I got you. We're gonna break it down, step by step, so you can understand what's at stake and why it matters to you. Because here's the thing. This ain't just some abstract geopolitical chess match. This is about your job, your phone, the price of your morning coffee. The decisions these two economic giants make will have ripple effects across the globe, shaping the world we live in for generations to come. So let's get into it, shall we? To really understand this rivalry, we got to rewind the clock a bit. Back in the day, after World War II, China was still finding its footing. The US, on the other hand, was riding high, the undisputed economic champ of the world. Trade between the two? Minimal, like that awkward first date where nobody really knows what to say. But then came Deng Xiaoping in the late 70s, and he was all about opening up China's economy. Fast forward a couple of decades and bam! China joins the World Trade Organization in 2001. It was like a dragon awakened, breathing fire into the global economy. Suddenly, China's the factory of the world, churning out everything from cheap t-shirts to high-tech gadgets. And the US? Well, they were more than happy to gobble up all those affordable goods, becoming China's biggest customer. It was a match made in economic heaven, or so it seemed. For a while there, it was all sunshine and roses. American consumers were loving the low prices, and China's economy was booming. It was a win-win, right? Well, not so fast. See, this economic tango came with a cost. As China's manufacturing sector exploded, American factories started shutting down. Jobs were lost, communities were devastated, and a lot of folks started pointing the finger at China. And it wasn't just about jobs. The US began to rack up a massive trade deficit with China, importing way more than it was exporting. American politicians started throwing around terms like currency manipulation and unfair trade practices, accusing China of not playing by the rules. The truth, as always, is a little more complicated. Yes, China's rise came at a cost for some in the US, but let's not forget that American companies also benefited hugely from access to China's massive market and cheap labor. It's a complex web of interdependence where both sides are deeply intertwined. But let's be real, folks. It's not just about economics, is it? This rivalry runs deeper than that. It's about national security, technological dominance, and good old-fashioned values. The US has long accused China of stealing intellectual property, forcing American companies to hand over their tech secrets in exchange to access to the Chinese market. Then there's the issue of human rights, with China's crackdown on Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang and the pro-democracy movement in Hong Kong raising serious concerns in the West. And let's not forget about the South China Sea, where China's been flexing its military muscles, claiming territory, and building artificial islands. The US sees this as a direct challenge to its naval dominance in the region, and tensions are running high. So you see, it's not just about who's got the cheaper iPhone or the faster 5G network. It's about fundamental differences in values, ideology, and strategic interests. And that, my friends, is where things get really interesting. Section 5. A trade war rages on. Remember those tariffs I mentioned earlier? Well, buckle up, Buttercup, because things are about to get bumpy. In 2018, former President Trump decided to take matters into his own hands, slapping tariffs on billions of dollars worth of Chinese goods. China, not one to back down from a fight, retaliated with tariffs of its own. And just like that, a full-blown trade war was underway. Prices for everything from washing machines to soybeans shot up, hurting consumers and businesses on both sides of the Pacific. The global economy took a hit, and everyone was left wondering, who's gonna blink first? Fast forward to today, and the trade war is still simmering. President Biden has kept many of Trump's tariffs in place, while also pursuing a strategy of strategic competition with China. What does that mean exactly? Well, it's a fancy way of saying that the US is trying to counter China's growing influence on all fronts, from trade and technology to diplomacy and military power. It's a delicate balancing act, folks. The US and China need each other, economically speaking, but they're also locked in a fierce competition for global leadership. And that's a recipe for tension, uncertainty, and a whole lot of nail-biting. Section 6. Seeking common ground, paths to resolution. So, is there any hope for these two economic titans to find some common ground? Well, it ain't gonna be easy, folks, but it's not impossible either. One path forward could involve targeted dialogues, where the US and China sit down and try to hash out their differences on specific issues, like trade imbalances or intellectual property theft. Increased transparency in trade practices could also help build trust and reduce tensions. And then there's the issue of global challenges like climate change and pandemics. These are areas where cooperation, not competition, is the only way forward. Imagine if the US and China, instead of battling it out over trade, joined forces to combat climate change or develop new vaccines. Now that's what I call a win-win. Of course, it takes two to tango, as they say. Both sides need to be willing to compromise, to see the bigger picture, and to put aside their differences for the greater good. Whether they can pull it off, well, that's the million-dollar question. Section 7. Charting the future. Scenarios for US-China economic ties. What does the future hold for these two economic giants? Will they continue on the path of confrontation or find a way to coexist? Let's explore some possible scenarios. Scenario 1. The Cold War 2.0. Tensions escalate, leading to economic decoupling. The US and China retreat into their own spheres of influence. It's a world divided with limited cooperation. Not a pretty picture, is it? Scenario 2. The Uneasy Truce. They avoid full decoupling but remain adversarial, competing in technology and military power, but cooperating on mutual interests like climate change. It's managed competition with some cooperation. Scenario 3. The Great Reconciliation. The US and China overcome differences, forging a new era of cooperation. They address global challenges and promote economic growth. A utopian vision worth striving for. Section 8. The World Watches, Global Implications, and the Need for Balance. Now let's not forget that this ain't just a two-player game. The rest of the world is watching this economic showdown with bated breath, wondering who to side with and how to navigate this increasingly complex geopolitical landscape. Some countries might be tempted to pick a side, aligning themselves with either the US or China. Others might try to play both sides, hedging their bets and trying to extract concessions from both superpowers. And then there are those who might get caught in the crossfire, their economies and security threatened by the escalating rivalry. The truth is, the world needs both the US and China to step up and act responsibly. They need to find a way to coexist peacefully, to cooperate on global challenges, and to ensure a stable and prosperous future for all. The alternative is a world of conflict, division, and economic uncertainty, and that's a future none of us want to see. Section 9. A Call to Action, Shaping a Future of Cooperation. So what can we, the people, do about all this? Well, for starters, we need to stay informed. We need to understand the complexities of this rivalry, the challenges it poses, and the opportunities it presents. We need to engage in constructive dialogue, to share our perspectives, and to demand that our leaders prioritize cooperation and diplomacy over confrontation and conflict. We need to hold our elected officials accountable, to push them to pursue policies that promote global stability and prosperity. We need to support organizations working to bridge the divide between the US and China, to foster understanding and to build trust. This ain't just about the US and China, folks. This is about the future of our planet, the well-being of our children and grandchildren. It's time to move beyond the zero-sum mentality, the idea that one country's gain is another country's loss. It's time to embrace a win-win approach, where cooperation and collaboration are seen as the only viable path to a brighter future. Because at the end of the day, we're all in this together. We're all citizens of this planet, sharing the same hopes, the same dreams, the same fears. Let's work together to build a world where cooperation trumps competition, where dialogue replaces division, and where peace and prosperity prevail. Peace out.